Welcome to the Bigfoot Society. In this classic episode from 2021, I talked to Jackie Tonks about her intense face-to-face Bigfoot encounter in Humboldt County, California. If you've experienced something similar to what Jackie has or have more information regarding Bigfoot or other cryptids in the same area, please reach out to me immediately after this episode. Remember, your encounter could be the key to unlocking this mystery once and for all, so please don't hesitate to contact me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I have the privilege of talking to Jackie Tonks for me this afternoon. For her, it's this night because she's over in the UK. Jackie is really a cryptozoologist, a Bigfoot researcher. She has a psychology degree, all sorts of stuff going on. Is there anything else you would like to add to that as well, Jackie? Or
I'm also a trained counselor therapist, so that's been quite good in the research as well.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
With interviewing witnesses as well. And yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am extremely interested in that. How has that helped with your witness interviewing?
I think, especially my therapy experience and also my first psychology degree, if somebody's fabricating stuff, you can tend to tell, very subtle, non-verbal. Sometimes they look at you too intensely. That's one thing they'll do. It also depends, though. People may look, I don't know whether you know about neuro-linguistic programming, when people are thinking about things from their imagine. It depends whether they're left or right-handed, but most people, they'll look down for recall and the left or right for recall, and then opposite for things from the imagination. And you've got to deem really what's their dominant brain side, actually tell whether they're trying to fabricate stuff just by, you can do little tests of stuff that there's all sorts of things you can do really. And I think it's also just checking whether somebody's a credible witness, not necessarily about what work background they've got, but it can help really. And what checking up in the community, are they seen as a reliable person? And I think the big thing with multiple witnesses as well, if you've got multiple witnesses, that's really powerful, really.
I'm going to be aware of everything I do in this interview after that conversation. I find myself looking up a lot when I'm interviewing. Does looking up mean anything particularly usually, or?
It usually means, I know the old thing they used to say about teachers would say to the kids, it's the answer's not on the ceiling, because kids but actually it is, because it helps them to spell when they look upwards.
Oh, interesting.
The brain's wired and so actually the teachers used to tell kids off, but actually it helps them spell. I was involved in some experiments and I got wired up by a psychologist.
No way. Oh, really? That's cool.
It was quite, when I was at university, some of the psychology degree, it was quite fun that.
Do you mind me asking, so you're in the UK, what part generally over there, just for context?
I'm presently living in Devon, which is the south part of the southwest. It's also where, not far from me, where they filmed some of Warhorse as well, Spielberg's Warhorse.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Spielberg, nice. And we get quite a lot of stuff filmed. The last scene of Apocalypto, when they see the conquistadors on the beach, is actually filmed in Cornwall.
I hear it's beautiful over there. I've been over to Ireland 2 times, to the western coast, Galway area, and it's just such a beautiful. Ireland is definitely laid back. I haven't been to England yet, but someday, either that or Scotland. I have Scottish heritage, but it's such a beautiful, nothing like being able to walk up to old medieval forts that don't have fences around them and just enjoy it. Like it's just
we've got some really old sort of Celtic and
exactly,
even Neolithic forts as well. They're quite cool. Yeah.
In America, would have that locked down, and because we don't trust anyone, and it's like over there, it's like whatever. It's really cool. I'm curious, how did you get into cryptozoology? What's your story there?
A very weird beginning. As a child, I used to watch the series called Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, and it had all different strange phenomena. But one of them I remember as a child, must have been 7, 8 years old, watching Patty, very famous, walking across the creek, and thought, I'd love to do that, but never thought anything I would or go Bigfoot. But I remember seeing Bob Gimlin as well, a very younger Bob Gimlin in that.
Oh, you did?
Back in the 80s. And I never thought I'd get involved with that. And then I had a really strange encounter. I was reading the Fortean Times. Do you get the Fortean Times over there?
No, but I have who's my contact? I have a contact. I believe his name is Peter Laws. Peter. So he got me an interview with Richard Freeman, which was fantastic. Yeah. And then British cryptozoology is amazing. It makes us look like we're in the Wild West, and you guys are super locked in, and you're going for it, and you're all over the world, and you're taping stuff, and you don't care if it's on TV or not. TV doesn't matter. It's very respectable. I respect you guys over there.
Yeah, I think people are very dedicated here. With it. And I think as well, we have, because I know in America, I noticed people don't get much time off work, a lot less than they do in England. So we have longer holidays, and I think that makes a difference for being able to do that. But going back to Richard Freeman, actually, the way I got into it, I was reading the 14 Times, and there was this article on the Mongolian death worm, which is the cryptid. And we got to the end, and there was a picture of a gothy-looking guy next to a dragon. And I thought, he looks a bit scary. Anyway, I thought better than I had at the time, and it was 10 at night. I thought, better walk the dog quick. I walked to the end of my road, which is near the big main train station Exeter in Devon, crossed the road, and then walked along, and then suddenly the guy whose picture I have seen in the magazine walks past me. Now, this is an international magazine. So I did this double take, and I swung round, and I said, excuse me, you're Richard? And he went, yeah, and he's looking at me strange. My dog was a bit scary looking, but actually really friendly. And he does like dogs. And I said, do you write for the 14 Times? He goes, yeah. And I went, oh my God, I've just been reading your article. Absolutely freaked me out. So we've just stood, weird. Anyway, about 6 months later, the train station had a news agent now, and I was buying the 14 Times, and two hands went to grab a copy. And he said, I was the person who met you on the street. He said, I remember you. And then he invited me to the conference, called Weird Weekend. Yeah. Which is, then there's a Weird Weekend. There's one held in Devon. There's now one held up in North as well, in Manchester. And then I met various people. I think that second conference I went to, I met Adam Davies, and he was going out and been invited out by Laurie Simmons to a Bigfooting. So he said, you can come if you want to. So I joined them and a couple other people from the Centre for Zoology, went out and not looked back since. So seriously got into it.
Wow, the synchronicity, like the coincidences and synchronicities for that all to happen is wild. What are the chances?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I didn't realise he lived in Exeter as well, but the chance of me reading the article, and he was at literally just past the bottom of my street, was freaky. Wow.
Such a cool story.
Yeah, it's almost meant to be. He's one of my best mates now.
Nice. Yeah,
really
he's a cool dude.
Me into that. Yeah, and me and other friends would meet up and do stuff, and so I've been to North America. I've been to Kabardino-Balkaria, which is now in Russia, looking for the Almasty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oof. So I've been to Nepal as well, interviewing people about Yeti sightings. And although the last time I was there, I got a possible interview with a professor there I think he does economic stuff, but he's also written books on Yetis. And he had a theory that Yetis have a migratory route, which is interesting because there's some theory with Bigfoots that they go from the mountain to the coast in the winter, which I thought was really interesting. And a bookseller said, I just happen to know him. I'll arrange you to meet him. And just as he was arranging, the Nepal earthquake hit. So I was in the earthquake, and we just had to get out of there as quick as we could, really. There was still quakes happening. So, I could meet him, but we're meeting people who'd had rocks thrown at them by Yetis. And my friends, I was just meeting my friend's brother there, because sadly my friend who's a Sherpa had died. And he basically hired some guides, and he said they came back absolutely shaking with fear, crying like children, he said.
Goodness.
And they were at an Annapurna circuit, Annapurna Mountain.
Okay, yep.
And he said, what's the matter? And he said he ended up hugging them, which he wouldn't normally do. It's not really. And he said, but they were like little children crying. And he said, what's the matter? And he said, big man monkey threw rocks at us. And he said, how big were the rocks? And they basically were coffee table size. So it wasn't going to be a macaque. And they said, what did it look like? And they said, taller than any white man. Now, you get quite a few Americans in Kathmandu, about 6'7". And they said, well above that. They said, well above any white man. And they said it had no tail, so I'm pretty sure it was a Yeti from the description, but these rocks are massive. So I met a guy in Exeter, actually, who'd seen a Yeti when he was 13. And he was out with his dad, climbing lower peaks. He was near this forest area and he saw something standing up. And he thought, what's that? He thought it was a bear. And suddenly this thing panicked and it was on all fours. And he described it having a face like a cat. So he said, you've got what the bear nose, but the rest of it was hair, but a flat face. And he said it was standing upright and it looked manlike. And then suddenly it went on all fours and panicked and started running on all fours, and it gamboled him over. He just slightly staggered a bit and fell backwards. And then all the Sherpas grabbed his camera off him and said, like this. And
no
they were
way.
Thing. So, yeah, this was just a casual conversation with a guy in my town in a Yeti as well. So,
I love it. That's amazing. Yeah. Oh, man. Wow. You have really gotten yourself into some crazy adventures, haven't you?
Yeah.
That chance meeting.
Yeah. The one in Russia was I've obviously done a lot of Bigfoot stuff. That's my area. But the one in Russia was quite interesting. Originally, I think they wondered what we were because there was no other Westerners in the area. And I think
really?
We had the police come and sit with us, and a detective kept joining us every night. And I thought, we're going to get arrested. And then he said, we thought you might be some spies or something, but we realized you were just crazy scientists. And then he was joining us. But they all completely believed in it. They all said, I don't know why you're interested in it. It's just a normal animal.
No way. They view it as a normal animal?
Yeah.
They're like, it doesn't.
Wow. We've seen loads of them. We don't know why you're so interested. Yeah, they were just bemused as to why we'd be out there looking for it. They said, why didn't you look for bears, whatever? They just couldn't understand why we were looking for this thing because they knew it existed. And I had this really bizarre conversation. We interviewed this guy who was an ex-priest.
Okay.
And this was the time of the Iron Curtain, and I don't know what he'd done, but he ended up in jail and no longer a priest. But he was telling us, and this guy was quite a credible witness being a priest, telling us how his grandmother used to have one in the garden in Almasty, which is the Almasty, for those who don't know, it's a bit, my friends have seen it, to my friends, Ukrainian friends, and they said it looked a bit like an Australopithecus. That was the closest Lucy match. And he was basically saying his grandmother had one come into the garden and it was throwing a few things at her to start with. And then she fed it. It was a female one. And then it got quite tame and it'd sit next to her grandmother and she'd feed it. And then the grandmother, actually, this could be quite useful because it can be quite aggressive, but it's okay with me. So she tamed it and she put straw down in the shed and it used to sleep there. So she basically ended up with this hominid guard dog.
Okay, so
if anybody would literally throw rocks at them. Yeah.
This is funny because I did an interview last week with a researcher from Alaska, Fairbanks area, and she shared a story with me from the 1860s that has been passed down in her area. It's not in a book at all that she's aware of, where it's very similar to that, where there was an older grandmother where there was pretty much like a younger Bigfoot, and it became almost like her son and was helping out. And after she was gone, it just disappeared.
I got told the one up at Ocean Shores by the First Nation people there.
Yeah.
They said there was an elderly chap who lived on the edge of the Ocean Shores who used to feed this quite large, I think it was a male Bigfoot, and sit on the bench with it. And then it would regularly meet him every night. He'd hand it food. And then he said the old man died and the Bigfoot just disappeared. Nobody saw it. But he said, we all remember that. It was just like a normal thing. Yeah, normal thing for them. Yeah.
You had mentioned that you've gone to North America for expeditions as well. Do you mind sharing about some of that? Yeah,
quite a few times. The first time with Adam Davies and Laurie Simmons, and we got the sort of camera trap photo that's quite controversial. I really don't know what that was, but we did have, if you can see it on YouTube, put Extreme Expeditions, it comes up. And we did have one of our members who's quite stocky crouch in the same position, but somebody else did analysis and said, from judging Dave's height compared to this thing was about 8 feet tall. It was but we don't know. We didn't know whether it was, I think we were just open-minded. Is it one of us in a sleeping bag, or it just looked too large? very strange, but it was just no footprints because the ground's just really solid. We're just dust. You can get footprints. But we did see about 10, 15 miles away from there, we did find some really good Bigfoot footprints, which you could tell were cast, some of those, got some
cool
of those. And you could see it was something really heavy because it was in mud. I tried to jump off a log and see whether I could recreate the depth, and I was just nowhere near the depth, quite heavy. And you could actually see where its toes had like crunched down, trying to get hold as it went up the slope. So they were pretty, and they got the one after the other. They're not side by side, they're like one after the other. And they look quite authentic. And I also heard what I think was a howl.
Really?
Just as I was getting my tent. The others had gone over the other side, but I could hear what sounded like a howl.
Was it like, are you familiar with the Ohio howl from the early 90s, like that one?
Yeah.
It's the one you hear on all the TV shows. Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
it was like that.
Yeah. But the exciting stuff really started to happen with 2014. I went out with Tom Control. I've met Tom on the first.
Oh, yeah, totally. Cool.
And we went, quite a few of us met up and we went just outside Orleans. There's a logging road up there. Is the OS or a G road? Anyway, the Orleans to, I can't remember the name. Anyway, this was in 2014. And we got there and you could clearly see what looked like Bigfoot footprints within minutes.
Way.
Like over the anthills, these big footprints. Thought, whoa, this is good.
Wow.
And then it was about 3-4 days in, we would drive to Willow Creek just to get a meal, which is about 40 miles away. Okay. Now, the logging road's really good. It's, what do you call it? I don't know what you call it. It's like gravelly stuff, but it can drive quite fast on it. So you can probably do 40-50 quite safely.
Yeah.
And then a bit to the campsite, you have to go really slow. But we were going along there, it was 24 in the afternoon. And I suddenly see from a distance, and I was really annoyed because I was just charging my camcorder batteries. And of all the previous times that I'd had it jammed in with my neck support thing, and like,
oh no.
And I could see these things from a distance. And they looked like two men in all-in-one suits, dark suits, with the hood up, but bare feet. And I said to Tom, God, what are these idiots doing? They're killing their feet on there. God, do you think they're drug runners or something? He starts laughing and he said, what are you here to look for? Or something like that. Oh,
that's awesome. Yeah, what are you here to look for?
It gets better than that, though. They then ran out into burnt trees and then panicked because they couldn't get cover because it was literally burnt out for miles on the one side, but not on the other.
Yeah, sure.
And then they suddenly came back in front of the car. And I've got my head turned to Tom. I heard him yell. And suddenly they're right in front of the car and he slams on the brakes and manages to stop, and he's skidding because it's like quite gravelly. And literally for about a second and a half, they just stood there because they don't know where to go. And you could tell they were panicking. They were like roof flapping and their faces like twitching. Well, the one I was just looking at I was flicking to the two, but the one I was looking at mainly. And you could see the faces twitching. They were that close. They were panicking. They didn't know what to do. And then they shot down a really steep slope, which afterwards, it's funny, people do this. I've read it, very consistent. People will see them and not stop because your brain's going, not to that. But
it doesn't know what to do.
My brain was also, wouldn't have said stop because a bit of things, they're just really weird looking drug runners because your brain's trying to rationalize it.
It's got to be something else. Yeah.
But also you don't. But for Tom, it was the novelty. He hardly like, oh yeah, I'm glad you've seen them sort of thing. He hardly reacted because Tom's seen them loads of times. And Arla, Kalich was in the back as well. And she didn't react too much because she's seen loads of them as well. But they were like,
who was that? Who was that in the back?
Arla Kalich Collins. I never pronounce her name right. I'll check though and let you know. Okay. But Arla, I know is Arla. But Colette, that's it, I think. Anyway, she was in the back as well. She'd been half asleep, so she woke up just to see them shooting over this slope.
Yeah. But
it was a close-up. You could see it wasn't fur, it was like hair all over, just like this, but all over, apart from the face, which was a lot barer. And the hands looked a lot barer, and some of the feet,
really?
A little bit on the chest, but you could see that the face was really not, the eyes were a lot bigger than I expected. They were all dark. I couldn't see any white at all. They were quite spooky looking eyes, very deep brow ridge. pointed head like a domed head like a gorilla, like sagittal crest possibly, and massive shoulders. The shoulders are about 3.5 foot across.
Oh wow!
Yeah, very. But it was almost like an inverted triangle. So you've got the very broad shoulders, and the legs were incredibly thin. You know, they weren't stocky like they portray in some images. They were like human's legs.
That's
the
interesting.
They're a bit like a rugby player in England, or I don't know what you call rugby there, but the rugby players don't have much neck. They're very muscly.
Sure. Okay.
And a bit, so you couldn't see much neck as well.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Remind me, how far away were they when you're taking a look at them?
I reckon I said 15 feet. Tom said 20 feet. And I said they were 6.5 and 7 foot tall. Tom said they were 7 and 7.5 feet tall. He's ex-forces, so he's probably going to be, and he's an ex-logger, he's probably better at judging distances.
Sure.
Yeah.
You said Northern California area because you were driving into Bluff Creek?
Yeah. It was basically, we found out afterwards, it was 2.5 miles from Bluff Creek, where Patty was filmed, where we saw them.
Wow. Humboldt, I think that's Humboldt County, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Curious. I don't think you mentioned this. Do you remember color scheme at all?
They were like very dark. It was almost like black, but it's like slatey grey. But I think they were black because it was very dusty. I think the dust had given the effect of slatey grey, but I think they were actually black or very dark brown. But they looked almost like slatey grey. We have Welsh slate, and that's like a very dark grey.
Looking at the figures, looking at the faces, did that evoke any emotions particularly in you? I always find that interesting.
I think those basically, it's like seeing a unicorn in the middle of the road. You just go, I can't believe I'm seeing this. And your brain's going, oh, it can't be that. It must be drug runners. There must be drug runners at backups there. You know, I was thinking if they're wearing a big woolly suit in that weather, it was hot. It was really cold at night, but it was really hot in the day because it was June. They'd be black, as Tom said, they'd be blacking out in no time. They would not cope with that heat. Your brain's rationalising, are they just really ugly blokes? And I think I hope I'm never going to end up in an interview with this guy, but I would describe the face like a really ugly Xavier Bardem. Got very similar features to him.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I know.
I was amazed how human. Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting.
I'll find you as I'm speaking. I'll find you the Ola's surname. Hopefully it's on her surname. But she says some of them are actually quite handled by human terms. Some of them are quite ape, and some are. I say Arla.
Really?
Colette. That's her name.
Is that another researcher from the UK or?
No, she's originally from Texas.
Really? Yeah. I've never heard that name before.
And she's written books
interesting.
on it as well. Her experiences as a child. Her and her mother came across a couple, and that she's been into.
I'll have to check that out. So that's interesting. They're saying that some of them were almost better looking than others, or like some of them.
Yeah, there's there's the ugly ones and the pretty ones. There's basically those who look ape-like and those who look quite human. Yeah. And I know some people have said, is it a sub-breed or are they just like people? You're going to get ugly people and pretty people, and
Yeah, sure. Is there? I know. With Richards, that organization, they sometimes would make, I haven't watched through all the stuff on YouTube. They've got a lot of stuff. Is there footage available to watch of that expedition, or is it like a private thing?
The one I did with Tom, I have got, I've not, it's funny, I've been really busy with work. I've not got around to putting stuff together. I did do a bit of filming,
It's just hanging out.
It's one of those things, isn't it? Yeah, I know.
No.
It's one of those things. I'm very good.
I get it.
Yeah, I often try to get other people to film there. I have actually done filmmaking courses.
Yeah.
I'm notorious for collecting it, but not compiling it. Although I have made friends with the guy with the production company, Brian Sterling Veet, and we're hoping to do stuff together. He's ex-BBC cameraman and presenter. He's got his own, so that should be good.
Is there footage of the Bigfoot? Or
no?
Okay.
No, as I said, it's one of those things charging the camera. But I think even if I'd had the camera there, I know people are often asked like why. The one we got quite a lot of film with the one with Adam Davis. There's already been the photo's been published. Sure. But I think the thing is, when you see one, it's like with Jeremy Holden, the wildlife cameraman from Australia, when he saw an orang pendek
Oh, yeah.
He's used to acting quick to film stuff, and he just dropped his camera.
From what I hear, it's just you can't be prepared for it.
You can't. Your brain's in shock. I think if I saw one a second time, but even the second time I had the rock throwing incident, which is highly likely to be one that was just after the Sasquatch Summit. It was one of the Saturday night it was on in November a couple of years ago. And Brooklyn Francisco, who films the summit, he normally works in television and film. We always try to do a little tiny expedition on Saturday night, go out for a couple of hours because it's prime Bigfoot area there. And we asked Johnny, who runs the summit, is there anything activity? And he said, yeah, we've had solid activity a couple of miles away. And he gave us the rough location. He said, yeah, we've had loads of sightings of a Bigfoot. So we went out to this location and went down a little logging road there. And we just randomly just parked the car. I went down this logging road probably about half a mile, and I could see the car. I could get a thermal image of the car engine still from where I was. So we went that far, but probably quarter of a mile, half a mile. And it was a very small logging road, very strange, actually. And we started doing the whoops. We started doing a bit of wood knocking. Brooklyn did a howl. I'm pretty good at the whoops. In fact, I've scared people. They think it's the real thing. But so we didn't. It was a bit of a laugh, really. We didn't really expect to get anything. It was raining a little, so we couldn't really use much equipment. I was using my thermal for a bit when it stopped raining, but the undergrowth was so thick. The trees hadn't been thinned out, really thick. You couldn't really see through. And we carried on, didn't expect anything. And suddenly Brooklyn just grabs me and he goes, oh, I've just heard a growl. And I can hear something in the undergrowth. And he said, I said, what was the growl like? And he said, like this. And it sounds, I said, my God, that sounds like it. That's like a silverback gorilla. Because I've sat with mountain gorillas. And the sound he did was just like an annoyed gorilla sound. I thought, whoa. I said, but he also could be a bear. They did a huff. He said, oh, yes, it could be. So we were getting a little bit sick. It was such a small path. Unless you could run back to the car, if something blocked your path, you'd have nowhere to go, couldn't get through the undergrowth, it was too thick. So we're a little bit panicky at this point, we're quite vulnerable. And then you heard the undergrowth. Initially it was really quiet though, we thought it was like a raccoon, and then we heard the growl. It was a little bit louder, but not like thrash. It was like, relatively quiet. But then you heard this sound, the grunt was literally about a foot above Brooklyn's head, and Brooklyn's about 6'3", 6'5". So the ground was flat. So you thought, oh, this thing's tall. So we started, but it could have been a bear on its hind legs. But then we had a pine cone thrown at our feet. And we thought, ooh, it's got hands. And I said, oh, it's probably just fallen off the tree. Don't panic. And suddenly a little stone came flying in front of my face.
Oh, man.
And I thought, oh, my God, it's definitely got hands. So we were like starting to panic at this point. And I think Brooklyn did the wrong thing. He pulled his machete out and then started. I was swinging his torch. We just panicked both because it was so close. This thing was no more than 4 or 5 feet away. Well, it could have been close. Yeah, it was that.
Oh, wow. So and he took out a machete?
Yeah, he had a little tiny machete, one small machete. Like,
that could have been it.
Yeah, it wasn't a good choice. Anyway, whatever it was.
Or maybe it was a good choice. You don't know.
You don't know, but it was whatever it was. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a human, because the next thing that came hurtling through was probably something like that. It was like a rock, but it was with such force. It actually, and the ground was quite hard. It wasn't completely frozen, but it was quite hard, the ground. It literally went into the ground and it smashed every stone it hit, and they were hard stones. And the force this thing was thrown, it was like I don't know whether, do you have shot putting as a...
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Just literally like a shot putter. And I thought, oh my God, that's not a human. Initially, Brooklyn shouted, stop pissing around, stop fooling around. He thought it was a human. He thought we'd possibly set up. But the force, unless somebody had a catapult on them, randomly sat in winter, but it would have been about 10:30, nearly 11 at night. And they wouldn't have got it through. It must have. I'm pretty sure it was a Bigfoot. And the growl, it was like. You said
this is a colleague of yours named Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, he's the guy who films the Sasquatch Summit. Yeah. He does like production manager stuff and all sorts of other stuff as well. The television and And
remind me, stuff. I am not overly familiar with the Sasquatch Summit. Tell me a little more about that.
It's really good. Everybody gets there on the Friday nights. There's a little bit of a social thing there. And then most of it's on the Saturday. It's very unusual in the English conferences. It would be whole Saturday, whole Sunday. But obviously, as people travelling long distances, you can't do that in this country. So in that country, it's a bit unusual for me. But I find it literally starts about 8, 9 in the morning and carries on all the way through. And we find that a bit of a challenge in England. We like our breaks.
Okay.
So
Right. Tea time and all that.
But there's so many lectures and it's really good. There's all top people there. They often have Bob Gimlin there.
Is this in the UK?
So close friends. No, we haven't had one yet in the UK. Tom Control ages ago was trying to get one started in the UK. And we do have one's general cryptozoology and unusual phenomena, but we've not had a Bigfoot one. It'd be great if we could get one because I'm sure we'd fill it.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah,
so the Sasquatch Summit, it's a US thing then?
The US, yeah.
Oh, just really? I'll have to look it up.
Ocean Shores, Washington State, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna get feedback. They'll be like, "You've never heard of this?" But hey, there's so many things.
I think it's one of the biggest conferences on.
Oh, that makes me feel even more amazing.
Yeah, it is great. You've got Ron Moorhead, Tom Powell, great. Bob Gimlin, as I said, who's actually very close friends with Tom Cantrell, so I know Bob. Yeah. He's a great guy. And as I said, I was watching that Arthur C. Clarke Mysterious World. I never thought I'd end up friends with Bob. Got dinner invite when I go back, and it's oh my god.
That's funny because I wonder if that's like how everyone in America is like. I watched In Search Of as a little kid. Is that like the British equivalent, like the Arthur C. Clarke?
I got a copy of In Search Of. Yeah, was that Leonard Nimoy, wasn't it? Was that Leonard?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I've got that one as well. That was
cool.
We used to get that as well. Yeah, very similar. I mean,
nice.
Obviously the guy who designed the satellites.
Yeah, kind of a big deal.
But he's a good presenter as well. Yeah, similar stuff, really. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. So you said you met Bob Gimlin back in the 80s?
Oh, no. I saw him on this program in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
When I was, about 10 years old. 8, 9 years old, something like that. But obviously I know him now because I've met him at the summit. He's very close friends with Tom Cantrell, who's my main mentor, really. So
really? Cool.
It's really weird how I actually got to know this guy as a child. I've been watching on this thing.
That's gotta be so cool.
It's wonderful for me, yeah. He's so honest as well. You meet him and Tom said you'll know in the first 10 minutes the guy didn't fake it. And he really transparent guy, really incredibly honest, very religious and genuinely wants to help people, really nice guy. And he'll say, I could have been fooled by Patterson. He could have set me up, but I'm pretty sure because this guy would have been in his suit for days and he probably would have been attacked by a bear and he would have got really cold. He'll say, I'm pretty sure it was real. He'll be very honest that he couldn't.
Yeah.
He said, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
That's so amazing. I hear a version of that from everyone that I interview that has met him. So you're definitely dead on with that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I have a few listeners that are starting to get into actually interviewing witnesses of maybe different types of cryptid sightings. And I know we've talked about this at the beginning, but any advice for them as they start off with maybe their best practices when they start off their first interview of a witness?
I think no leading questions. I think that's an important thing really with anything like that. Don't ask leading questions. Just let the people speak and get the description first. You can ask questions later on, but just let them speak because if somebody is confabulating, if they are making it up, you're giving them cues what you want. So I think it's good to just let them speak. Just say tell us what you saw and just don't say anything. So yeah, I think and you can also look for consistency in the report really. But sometimes interested in courts, a couple of friends of mine who are judges have said inconsistency is sometimes a good thing to indicate it is true. If somebody's lying, they often rehearse the story a bit too well and they're too consistent. A little bit. And also it's in like child abuse cases, people are stressed.
Sure.
Their often memory's not that good because when you're seeing something you're scared of, your primitive brain kicks in, your lower brain centers, and that's often out of time sequence. It's often not very good because that's your reptile brain is often not very, it doesn't
Right,
really
exactly.
have a concept of time or sequence. If you've got two, the person said, oh, it's exactly, I could say, oh, yeah, it was about 20 to 4 because we both purposely looked at the clock. But you get in some people's stories, there's too much that sort of detail, which with somebody's adrenaline going makes you think, no, yeah, there's too much of that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Have you
Almost
written
like
any books, Jackie?
No, people keep encouraging me to.
You
I've done
need
articles.
to. You
Yeah.
absolutely need to.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm really surprised you haven't. The stories you've been telling.
People keep telling me I need to, and I think it would be good to do a book from an English person's perspective, visiting America to look for Bigfoot.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I found other people in UK who do go over. It'd be quite good to get involved with them, really. I've written articles for journals, but not.
You could even just record yourself talking and have someone transcribe it too. That might be an option too, but yeah, that would be so cool. I know plenty of people that would be into reading the viewpoint of Bigfooting in the Pacific Northwest, Northern California from someone from the UK. That would be so cool. And I don't think that book has ever been written.
Yeah, I wrote quite a chunk of my experiences in Richard Freeman's Adventures in Cryptozoology.
Oh, okay.
I wrote sort of section in there about my two main Bigfoot experiences. So they're in there. But yeah, it's that further step, isn't it? The book. Can I?
It is, right?
Halfway through, it's a big challenge. My friend Richard Freeman, he's just written loads, and I just don't know how he does it. It's sort of,
I don't know either.
And Peter Laws as well. It's like the whole research behind it as well.
Yeah. Man, if we had the same determination over here, imagine how much would be putting out in the US. Richard is putting out some serious books. Is there any place that you haven't gotten to investigate yet that's on the bucket list?
I'd love Bhutan because I'd love to go there because it's an amazing country. They've only recently allowed internet there because they're worried about corrupting people. And it's one of the princes there is seriously into Yeti hunting.
Really?
He was on that program, wasn't he? What's it called? The one. Anyway, this English guy went out there with a team. They'd spotted a Yeti in this certain area. There'd been footprints found, and they managed to get environmental DNA, which is DNA from water and soil, and they got a DNA that looked in between a human and an ape, and it was proper DNA. But they interviewed one of the princes of Bhutan, and hardly ever will he allow an interview, but he was so serious. And he said, I've set up a Yeti reserve, and he's seriously into it. Sent he couldn't get him himself. He sent one of his representatives, and they
went to do the interview.
Oh, yeah. So it's quite serious, which is great, isn't it? Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am going to, got the list of questions here. So they're interesting questions. There might be some that are like, oh, that's a little departure, still into kind of cryptozoology, but just we'll see. But is there anything that I should ask you that I didn't know enough to ask?
Ooh.
Yeah. Interesting, right?
Oh, I don't know. You could ask me, what else do I do apart from cryptozoology?
That's true. Yeah.
But it's relevant to this program. I do paranormal investigation as well. So.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's a whole different. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. But it's similar overlap because you're used to using night vision stuff. Yeah. So similar stuff. And it also, another thing where it tests your reality really and your willingness to open up to stuff. And I've had some pretty weird experiences with that as well. So it makes me a lot more receptive to Bigfoots. I've actually had what seems to be ghosts do things to order for me, and I've asked them to, and all sorts. So yeah, that's some weird stuff. So Bigfoot's not weird to me anymore. I think it's fairly normal.
Is there an incident in that paranormal research that made you completely change your worldview?
I think the first time you get an experience, I think it really throws you. I was out, I don't know whether you've ever seen Most Haunted. It's like a big ghost program.
Yep.
Out with David Wells, and I've also done stuff with Kieran O'Keefe, and I've appeared on, I think, Taps. And I did an investigation with David and his group, and I just got some very bright light orbs on the camera. And I thought, whoa. And for 6 months, I couldn't go. It was my first experience. I couldn't go ghost hunting. It completely freaked me out. I thought,
Wow.
oh my goodness, they really exist. I'd had some weird stuff when I was younger with experiences, but it really threw my sense of reality for a while. And I think I showed to some people who just couldn't bear looking at it. It really scared them. And I think that first experience, and I've had other things that are just so bizarre. I had one pub called the Carrick Barton. It used to be in part of the bits of it. It was a monastery that was knocked down, and then it was rebuilt. It was a school. Then it's a public house, and it's really haunted. It's been investigated by loads of the television teams. It's got loads of ghosts, monk ghosts, you name it, it's got it. And we had this one that you'd be there and the door handle would be bang, bang. And we tried to debunk it to check it wasn't sucked air because there was another door behind it. It wasn't. Wow. And then we stood in front of it and there was 6 of us, I think. And we weren't really thinking anything would happen. We just said, oh, we know you're there. And do you mind moving the door handle again? And as we watched, there was about 4 or 5 of us. I think a couple of them couldn't see it because they were obscured by a bit of furniture, but you could see a white light, like a ball of white light, that almost looked like plasma, almost like a plankton. These programs illuminated from the back, and it was slightly moving like an amoeba. It was circular, but it would change shape. Literally came out of the wall, went towards this door handle, and then the door handle went, we went, oh, thank you. The voices have gone really high because we're scared. Oh, thank you very much. You might do that again. And it again. And then you do it a third time. And then we said, oh, thank you very much. And then the ball of light went back into the wall and went, oh my goodness.
That's
just so really stuck up.
Wow. What, that was in England or?
Oh, it was in England, a place called Carrick Barton Pub in Exeter and Devon. And it's got monk ghosts, style ghosts who will do things to order. Yeah, she's quite good. She'll giggle in your ear and she'll, I hear her crying in the kitchen, but she'll actually do stuff if you asked her to do it. It's freaky.
Yeah, no thanks. I'll let you. You got all those. Yeah.
Very receptive ghost, but that was freaky, this light ball. The little girl, you can say, will you stand next to somebody, but you'll tell the ghost and not them, and then you'll see who can feel the cold spot, and it's always the person that you whispered to the
pranks with a ghost. I love it. What are you most excited about right now? It could be anything.
Oh, I mean, I'm just about to live on a canal boat.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been exploring, reading up about haunted waterways, and there's loads of them. The Irish navvies who built the canals, loads of them died. It was really bad. There weren't a lot of safety things, and there's loads of haunted tunnels. I'm really waiting to get down there, but I really want to get back out to America and do some Bigfoot research.
Wouldn't that be cool?
To various people, and just want to get out of there and just get back. And but it's quite frustrating at the moment. But I have been looking at more Almasty sightings in different areas of the world where those might be.
Wow. Any Papua New Guinea stuff?
I do. I've not actually been there yet. I've got an invite by Rex Yappy. Talked to him quite a lot, and about the ropen, which is the sort of flying reptile possibly out there. Yeah. If there's going to be anything, it'll be there. But mind you, areas of Siberia just go on forever. I've flown over Siberia and it just goes on for hours.
Yikes.
So I can see that in Canada as well, isn't it? It's amazing. There are the possibility of undiscovered creatures, and I think New Guinea as well. There's so much that's unexplored there.
Is Rex a cryptozoologist over there?
Yeah, he's I think he's the main one, if not the only one.
Oh, he's the dude for PNG. For cryptozoology.
He's really into it. Yeah,
I gotta track that dude down. That would be cool. What are the top books someone getting into Bigfoot should have on their bookshelf? What do you recommend?
Although he is my very close friend, I wouldn't just say this just because he's my friend, but Richard Freeman's Adventures in Cryptozoology.
Oh, yeah, sure.
He's already got volume 1 out. Volume 2, I think, is coming out about October. It's really well written, really good. Covers dragons, hominids, a lot, and he's a very good researcher. He's like an encyclopedia, Richard. You just ask him something, he'll tell you the date and who did it, and got amazing memory. I like Tom Powell's book, The Locals. That's very good. And the pictures on the front are very authentic looking.
Okay, so hold on. That's interesting. So very authentic, like that matches up with what you saw.
Very similar, yeah.
Really?
Very similar. Yeah, the face.
That's amazing.
That's right, yeah. That book that Autumn Williams did, was it called the one? Oh, it's got religious. The one that Autumn Williams did about the bloke who reckoned he spent time with a Bigfoot. I'm just trying to think, what's it? Oh, I can't remember the name of it now. But that Enoch, right? That's the one. Yeah, that's amazingly close as well. That, really? Yeah, I saw that. And also, there's that other one, the radio show guy who saw one who got the face reconstructed. That was a bit similar. It was a bit more ape-like. But yeah, I've seen some and it's made me go cold because they look so similar. And I've got a bit shaky. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some things have sent me a bit shaky again. I'm almost reliving it because my sighting was I almost recall it like a road accident because your brain slows down because you're in shock and you think, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Ooh, that is cool. Not that you have to relive that, but just the fact that some book covers will just be like, bam, put you right back into that scenario.
It is, and it does send you almost like you've had a car. It is the similar feeling. You go all shaky, totally. And I mean, it's the lady who had I've got a name memory block tonight. Cindy Dozen, is it? The lady got chased by the Bigfoot to a car.
Okay.
I think it's Cindy Dozen. I interviewed, I had just coffee with her at the Sasquatch Summit, and I saw it was always had she really, or is it? And I started chatting with her, and her legs and her chin started shaking.
Oh.
And I said, you got really traumatized by that? And she said, yeah, I got really traumatized by it. And you could tell she was recounting a real event because she was like reliving the trauma and she was literally shaking. And I thought, whoa, yeah.
I think there's a good lesson there that when we're interviewing witnesses, we have to be very empathetic to what they've gone through and to be able to connect with them.
And people with a rock
support if needed.
Yeah. With a rock cone, people said, why didn't you stay there and get a shot? And it was like, I could have been killed.
Yeah,
it was
totally.
Massive. If that one rock had hit us, it would have snapped your leg, the force it was thrown.
Yeah.
You hit your head, you would have had your skull cracked apart. And you were so close to it, and we realised this thing was probably 4 or 5 feet away. It would have just ripped you apart if it had come out. And I think people say, Bigfoots are potentially friendly, but they're also potentially, if it's an ape, gorillas, you have to really watch yourself. And a mountain gorilla can rip an arm off just like that. Yeah. What can a Bigfoot do? Because they're massive.
I know, right?
I think you have to be really careful with things. It could be partly man, but it's also a wild animal. And I think the habituation stuff's quite good because it's got a choice then. It can come up to you, and I think that's a lot safer. But I think going into the territory, especially if you've got young, things will attack. So you've got to be careful. And humans will attack if they're younger threatened. So I think we all...
Sure, yeah, you got to be careful when that's involved. What in your opinion is Bigfoot?
I think it looked very similar. It's probably an evolved hominid. It looked very similar to Homo habilis to me. It wasn't anywhere near a Neanderthal. It wasn't as primitive. I wouldn't have thought it was Australopithecus, but it was like somewhere in between, I would say. The Gigantopithecus, the pictures, reconstructions, it's quite ape-like. It wasn't as ape-like. It was a lot more, it was a bit like a cross between a human and an ape. You could see characteristics of an ape, but you could also see early man characteristics.
Sure.
And I think the Sierra Sounds, I know people who've heard those. Yeah. John Hammer, I know from the BFRO, friend of mine, he was out camping and he actually had something whack the side of his truck really high. And then he heard them and his dog was terrified.
What was that name again?
John Hammer.
Okay, because I've heard a similar story from a gentleman in Alabama. That's how that happened too.
He
That's
heard
wild.
the sound. He didn't believe it, and it's skeptical till he heard them, and they said exactly the description and what we hear on the tapes.
Wow,
exactly like that. Yeah.
Oh, that would freak me out. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard the whoops as well. I've heard those.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
be able to record? Did you ever get any sounds on tape, or is it a thing where it happened and usually there's nothing recording?
A lot of the time it happened. I tried to record, I think, when I was at Tom Cantrell's, but they were just too far away, really.
Gotcha. Yep.
To actually get it. You could hear them, but your sound recorder just wasn't picking them up. I possibly got, it's a lot of, it's finding, I want somebody who just loves going through data for hours and is willing to sit there. I occasionally manage to get stuff out, but it's having the time, isn't it? I've done it with ghost stuff, but it's not, a lot of these things, you've got to sit there for hours and hours. We have got people in the CFZ who love doing that. We sometimes hand them stuff, but it's having that patience, having the time if you're working as well. I have got to really create a website really and put this stuff up, I think.
It sounds like almost a thing like David Ellis from the Olympic Project in the Pacific Northwest. He's the sound guy who's like, he's just pouring through everything, looking at the sound.
David's offered to do stuff with me. Yeah, he's really good. He's really good.
Totally.
Analysis and
he's probably the top guy, I would say. Is Mothman good or something else? Do you have any thoughts on Mothman?
I'm not too sure about Mothman. I would say you've got the Jersey Devil. I think that was probably a crane, to be quite frank, but it's my theory. And it was also a political dig, wasn't it? Somebody, a lot of it. But I think the Mothman, I don't know really. It's bizarre. I think the brain can create some amazing stuff. It can really, and I think the CFZ, John Downs and Richard Freeman, was the idea that there's the global monster template. They've looked into the idea that we've got these genetic memories. There were things in the past that used to attack us, and like the big cats. We do get, it's another thing I've been into, big cats as well in England, looking for them. But they also researchers showed a bleating black shape to kids in Berlin. They were very unlikely to see a wild black cat. And kids in the Amazon basin where they could see jaguars, whatever, and they were equally likely to interpret this shape as a big black cat. Is it genetic memory? We can recognize spiders, we can recognize snakes, and there's evidence that's a genetic memory, but is there genetic memory for other things that were perhaps other large apes that preyed on us or flying animals?
That's been brought up in an interview just the other day, actually, that same exact notion. Yeah.
And I'm sure Richard will expand on that with you. But sometimes these misinterpretations are things. I think it's a shame in the Bigfoot field. People jump to conclusions. They see a shape and they say it's a Bigfoot. And it doesn't do, it's better to just hold back unless you've got something really good, because it's giving the field a bad reputation. I don't think scientists take it seriously because of that. I think it's great to offer stuff and to get it debunked, but I think people need to get something really good before they show it. I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? There's one the other day, me and a couple of people on the site quickly debunked a porcupine up a tree. Now, I'm not even American, and I could tell it was a porcupine up a tree. I'm not used to seeing porcupine up trees, but I could figure it out. Yeah. I think people just need to be they get excited. I think that's the thing they get.
I think that's the thing. Yeah, they get extremely excited, and you're not thinking logically. And I agree.
It's great. Enthusiasm's great, but you need to hold back a bit. Yeah.
Are we, and I don't know if this is just a US thing, so we'll see if it lands or not. Are we concerned enough about Dogman? Or do you have any thoughts about that?
I did give a talk a while back on Dogman because I'm also in ASAP, Association for Study of Anomalous Phenomena, which is like a scientific group. And I'm pretty sure, I didn't realize Pat Spain had come up with this theory that it was actually a bear with mange, and I independently came up with that. And then Pat had come up with it as well. And that Pat had got, even because he's a zoologist, biologist, he'd actually realised as well that it was seen eating something like that. And of course, bears do that, not anything wolf-like. Wow. So that was even more, I thought, oh God, yeah, that's dead on. I think a lot of the time, and they look bizarre, they've completely lost their fat, because a lot of a bear is fat. When they lose that fat and they're really scrawny with mange, that you suddenly, and a lot of them's fur as well, you've got this real dog-like, and they are, dogs and bears come from the same evolutionary line, you can understand, but you see them, they look like a werewolf, and they look really unusual.
You said the gentleman's name is Pat Spain, is that?
Yeah, he's the guy who did the, is it Beastman series, cryptozoology? Yeah.
Okay.
He's Charles Fort's great nephew.
Oh, that's cool.
I had a chat with him on the internet. It was great because
Nice.
one of our Centre for Zoology, Richard Freeman's one of guides, Sahar. He sadly died, and I randomly contacted Pat because Pat had used this guide, not expecting a response, and got a really long email back saying, "Oh, you're from the Centre for Zoology, cool," and telling me all about Pat, his that he was Charles Fort's great nephew and how they've got some of Charles Fort's stuff at home. And
man.
Yeah, I had a really good sort of chat with him on the internet. And
that is sweet.
Yeah.
I love that.
A few emails talking about it. Yeah.
Oh, that is cool. What do you think the possibility of living dinosaurs are?
I think the Makalembe and the other ones in Africa, I think a lot of the time they're mistaken elephants because certain people who see them, certain tribes wouldn't be used to, they don't particularly go to certain areas. And I think they're often elephants swimming because you've got the head coming up. I think Pat Spain as well thought that one, and I think that's a highly likely theory. But again, I've been to it was then Zaire, it's now the Congo, the massive area, loads of it you can't even get through, very thick forest. And there's a possibility, I think there's definitely a possibility. And there's that one saying the tribe ate it and then they all died, almost all died. A lot of reptile flesh is quite toxic. That would be consistent with that. You get really bad salmonella off it. So there's a little bit of evidence there, but I don't know. I think as well, some of these areas, they're very poor. And if you get somebody coming in saying, can you show us this? There's also a cultural thing in Africa. They want to please. So they'll say yes to please you because they don't want you to have a bad time. And I came across this. I had one point when I said to a guide, is that snake not poisonous? He said, oh, yes. And then I had a massively poisonous snake crawl across my shoe. And
no way!
This just froze. This black snake, and I found out afterwards it was like a really poisonous one. And so
you just have to ask.
It's a cultural thing. It's trying to please, but you
can't ask any yes or no questions ever.
Yeah, that's it. It's just a cultural thing. They're trying to make sure you have a good time. So they're saying, yeah, fine, but there's a few cultural things that you have to watch out for. Yeah.
How poisonous is a snake? 0%. Great, let's go.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I think with anything you have to get to know the culture really and understand the cultural nuances as well when you go out anywhere to check why you might say something. They're just trying to please you, and that does happen in a few areas of the world as well. Yeah.
Wow. Lastly, what do you consider the top evidence for Bigfoot?
Obviously, I know it exists because I've seen it myself.
There you go.
I think the footprints are very good evidence. The fact they've got dermal ridges. I don't think, because I knew Professor Brian Sykes, who sadly passed away recently.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we worked with him in the CFZ. He very much believed there was a program, actually, Bigfoot Files, that was done with him in it, and they edited it in a way to imply he didn't believe it and he wasn't happy about it at all.
That is absolute garbage.
It really does. Yeah, I was really upset because they edited it in a way to imply he didn't believe in it, and he really does. We did, rather. But he basically said, unfortunately, a lot of things like Melba Ketchum's DNA, there's a lot of evidence it was corrupted by human DNA. It's actually very difficult. Brian's done some very good techniques with other people for of removing the corrupted stuff and washing it, as it were, to try to remove the corrupted. But it's so easy to contaminate it with human DNA. And I think this is likely what a lot of people are seeing. He writes about this, and I think it's called The Last Neanderthal in the US. The book was called The Nature of the Beast in the UK. His book, but because of the religious connotations, they changed the name in America.
Sure.
Yeah. But it talks about it there. But I think it's very easy to get it corrupted, and you've got to know what you're doing when you collect it.
Jackie, this has been super, super fascinating. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for chatting tonight.
Thank you. I keep forgetting all the names tonight.
Hey, it's enough for me to look up stuff, so that's fine with me. Yeah, this is cool. Yeah. It sounds there's definitely maybe future things coming. Are you putting out things currently to do with cryptozoology? It sounds like you have in the past, at least in Richard Freeman's book, you can read stuff. Anything else that people can keep up to date with what you're doing? I always ask that.
I'm going to have probably a bit more time soon. I probably will do a website, really. So cool. I'm hoping to do that, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know, totally.
Up, really. And as I said, I keep getting nagged to do this book, so I might have a bit more time soon.
Yeah, totally. Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Definitely, yeah.
Jackie, thanks so much for hanging out. Any last words? Or if not, I think we're good to go.
Yeah, I think we ideally need to get evidence for Bigfoot. And I don't think it's that with the forests it's in. I don't think it's that much in danger. It's not like an owl with a nest that gets knocked down. I think the forestry protects it, to be quite frank. I think, though, I'm definitely not an advocate for shooting it. I think you can get other evidence. I think it's any animal. I think I don't agree with shooting to get specimens to prove the science. I think there's other ways you can do it. And I think wildlife cameramen, they're probably the best people. I spoke to some top wildlife cameramen who were quite interested in it. And I think that's the answer, isn't it? Don't use autofocus cameras. They can't cope in the woods. Try to get manual focus cameras and but habituation seems to be the answer. I think people are starting to get quite good results with habituating, which is what they did with the mountain gorillas. So.
Wow. That's very interesting. Oh, man. There's a lot to unpack from this episode. Thank you. This has been a pleasure. Let me know if I can ever help in any way in the future with future publications or anything. But thank you so much for coming on, Jackie.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much.
Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. Something I would love to hear, and I've never asked for this before, but if you've ever randomly met another person and you found out that you both listen to the Bigfoot Society, I would love to hear about that. It just sounds like a really funny scenario. I have heard of that happening a few times, but I would love to hear your story as well. So you can email me, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. I'll see you back next time, listeners. New shows on Mondays and Fridays. I'll see you then.